Debate live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil, Sensual Goat, Chocolate Sane, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server, so welcome one and all.
Konnichiwa.
Hello.
Morning, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Morning,
Good to have you all. Stretch Out Nick, otherwise known as Phuket Word, got in touch with me yesterday evening explaining that he's put together a video on how flat earth measurements were used to create a globe. He said, it's not true, but he was like, you're a bit of an expert on this. I'm not. But can you have a look at it? I was like, yeah, of course I can. I like the compliment. I'm no expert. But I'm surrounded by people who definitely have a lot of information and a lot of knowledge that have passed on to me about this subject. So, hopefully a few of them will be watching or are joining us now in Discord and G+, and will have their two pennyworth if there are any critiquable points on it. Now, going by my experience with Nick, he doesn't tend to make any egregious mistakes in my past experience with him. Does anybody have any recollection of Nick making egregious mistakes in regards to the subject of flat earth? Because I can't think of any. The only gripe is occasionally he'll talk about science in an incorrect context, like most people. But nothing that I'd be getting in touch with him about it. Anybody?
Yeah, nothing that I can remember.
Me neither.
Offhand.
Okay, well, in either event, Nick is a friendly. He's on our side. We seem to be doing more and more videos of people actually on our side, which is nice. But please go and subscribe to Nick. That's Phuket Word, because he's out in Phuket, in case you hadn't figured. So I've put a link to Nick's video in the live stream chat. So that's now whizzing its way on by for all of you in the live stream chat now. There's 40 of you. Go and let Nick know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. He'll know exactly why, because he's asked me to cover this video. So yeah, do leave him a comment. Help him along in the YouTube algorithmic love that we, including Nick, definitely don't receive from YouTube. So it's nice if we can spread that love. So go and let Nick know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. That's an @ Nathan Oakley 1980, all one word. So it pops up as a nice little blue tag so people can find their way back here. And also makes the videographer, in this case Nick, who is on our side, aware that we've covered the video that they have produced. Even though Nick already knows because he's asked me to do it. But yeah, go and give him some love. Go and subscribe. Leave him a comment. Leave him a like. I'm pretty sure yes, I am still subscribed to Nick. Good. Yeah, unless anybody's got any comments outside of whether or not Nick's done anything wrong, probably not the best opener. Sorry, Nick, if you're watching this. Yes. What has this man done wrong? Let's assess that first. Right, let's get on.
Researchers, debaters and debunkers. Nick here from Phuket Word, and today I want to demonstrate what I hope is the simplest way to understand how the distances measured on a level Earth are converted into distances on a globe model. So we'll do a bit of whiteboard work, and of course we'll be talking in terms of nautical miles and degrees, because That's how the coordinate system, namely latitude, has been worked out, which is then converted into a globe. But it all started...
He's already on the perfect track, isn't he? I already know from the intro that this is going to be absolutely fine. And ace.
With people measuring distances on a level Earth and making observations into the sky, looking at either a star such as Polaris or the sun, and then calculating the distance the observer is from that ground point. And then by having those distances using nautical miles and degrees, the angles that are seen of the stars or the sun above the horizon, a level surface, are then converted into a curved surface for a globe model. So first of all, let's just have a look at a document I put together that shows the relationship between nautical miles and degrees.
So let's just go over how these Earth distances conversions are done when we use nautical miles or kilometers, and then converting those into degrees. So we're basically basing this on nautical miles, and then the formula for converting nautical miles into normal miles would be multiplying the nautical miles by 1.151. And if you wanted to get kilometers, then you convert the nautical miles into kilometers by multiplying that by 1.852.
I've got the best history when it comes to converting kilometers, I'm afraid, Nick. But hopefully Brian's listening and will toddle along and join the hangout. When it comes to the maths, Brian's probably the best person for that. So I'm going to reserve judgment. I'm pretty sure this is all correct, and it sounds like what Brian typically talks about when he does the maths, because I don't.
And then to get the degrees from nautical miles, we basically divide by 60. So however you want to make out your distances or measure your distances in the first place, we end up converting into nautical miles. So you can see here, for example, that 60 nautical miles would be 69 miles.
Okay, so Nick's starting with the degree measurement angle, if you will. So the nautical mile he's already got, and he's just doing the conversion, which is fine. But when he says times by 60, it's the same times by 60 that we talk about when we talk about getting a co-altitude. So you get your elevation angle minus from 90 times by 60. That's what Nick's describing here, I think. Unless I'm mistaken. Hope Brian comes and bails me out in this stuff.
Or 111 kilometers, but that would only be 1 degree. Yeah? So then as we go down, we can see that 600 nautical miles would end up giving us 10 degrees. And then we go down to here, 20 degrees would be 1,200 nautical miles.
Yeah, that way around's fine. Again, I'm not going to pretend I know all the maths. I don't. But it's that way around that it would make sense to me. So you're deriving the mile from the degree, not the other way around. So it's not how many miles would give you a degree, because you measure the degree and derive the nautical miles from the degree measurement. So on that last one, you said the number of degrees followed by the miles, which is how it makes sense in my mind, just to be hypercritical.
Again, based on this simple formula of dividing the number of nautical miles by 60 to get the number of degrees. So 1,800 miles is 30 degrees, 2,000...
Yeah, he's doing it the other way around. So where he's dividing by 60, we'd be times him by 60 when we do it from the degree that you measure to give you the miles to the GP point. So he's just doing it the other way around. Fine.
1,400 miles is 40 degrees, 3,000 miles is 50 degrees, 3,600 is 60, 4,200 is 70 degrees.
I'm not wrong in saying this sounds weird, am I? Because we always do it the other way around, don't we? Because it just seems so alien for him to be telling us how many miles gives you how many degrees. Is it just me? Yes, Nathan, it's just you. You're weird. Oh, well, you know, you do things one way around and you get used to it.
Degrees, 4,800 is 80 degrees, and 5,400 nautical miles is 90 degrees. So you can see how using nautical miles gives you a very nice round number. Whereas if you're using miles or kilometers, then it's kind of all over the place and the conversion becomes quite difficult. Okay, so hence nautical miles being used in navigation because they very easily convert in roundish numbers to degrees. So by that calculation, you end up...
Yeah, it's the other way around. The degree that you measure converts to a nice, convenient, round number of nautical miles. But I mean, on paper, you can do it. It doesn't matter which way round you do it, I suppose. On paper, it's just however you want to do it to make this point. But like I say, the only reason I'm critiquing it is because typically we're taking the practical Earth-based measurement, that's the angle, and applying it to the calculations thereafter, which is the miles. Whereas in the way that Nick's presenting it, he's saying you take the number of nautical miles, divide by 60 to get the degrees. You're like, but you'd never do that. You wouldn't want to know what your sextant would give you in degrees based on a number. That's not a useful way round. Hey, John.
Hey, what's going on?
Nick's asked us to critique his descriptions of celestial navigation and the conversion from flat to globe. I'm just going through it, but it just in the way he's presenting it, it's just foreign to me. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just foreign to me.
Up with a hemisphere, or 180 degrees, that is equal to 10,800 miles, okay? And then a great circle would be 21,600 miles. That's all the way around a circle, which of course is 360 degrees.
Again, that sounds foreign because you can't really convert out from 360. You've only got your field of vision, so I don't know if that's an erroneous calculation that Nick's given there. Could you calculate mile distances with 360? I don't think you could. 180 would be the maximum, wouldn't it? Nobody's answering me. Oh well. Hey,
I'm
Brian.
trying to think in context of the celestial sphere. Is that
All
like
spheres are
you're trying to figure out a
Yeah, but
circle?
All spheres are 360, whoever said that, but it's just when you're dealing with the ground, you've only got your field of view. You've only got 0 to 180. Now, if you describe two planes in the celestial sphere, then they are separate systems. They're sandwiched antipodal from one another, but you don't have a combined 360 conversion to miles. This seems... I mean, like I say, I'm no expert in this maths, but that just seems wrong to me. Brian, have you got any take on that?
Is he trying? Well, before he does, is he calculating the circumference of a circle equal altitude in that?
Again, how could you do that with 360 degrees?
That is a circumference. You're thinking, I'm talking about a horizontal 360, not a vertical.
No, it's deriving length to GP or total length across the circumference. You know what I mean? The diameter, is it? So he's calculating a mile value for a diameter, but he's using the measurement in degrees at 360. Well, I'm saying you can't do that because the maximum ground distance you could achieve would be 5,400 off the top of my head. And that's the full field of view that you could attain. Now, that's not to say that you could measure two separate things on that scale of 0 to 180, i.e. if the two stars that you measure, one was, almost at the horizon to your left, and one was almost to the horizon at your right. No, I'm still pretty sure that you'd still only have a maximum of 5,400. Okay, I'm going to go with that's wrong. You can't derive a nautical mile with 360 because you can't get that measurement, can you?
You can. What's the question he's answering? Or what's he after saying?
He's not.
Came in at the very end of it.
What he's doing is he's taking a number in nautical miles, dividing it by 60 and giving a degree number. Now, the first thing I said was this seems backwards because what you do is you measure an angle to give you a degree so you can calculate the distance to GP. So it goes angle, then miles, right? Like minus from 90 for co-altitude times by 60 for the distance. Well, he's dividing by 60 to give him the number in degrees. But then when he's got past 180, he's now giving us 360 degrees as a conversion with a mile number.
Yeah, but that's at that point he's going underneath the horizon.
Yeah, exactly. It's going underneath.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah,
in that way, no, because you can only walk at 180.
Yes, that's my point. So you can only work with 180, but because it's, you could keep going. You could just make the degrees even bigger, right? Let's make it 720. It doesn't work like that. You've got a maximum. It's 180 because that's your field of view.
So he was talking about a vertical circumference.
No, he's talking about a conversion from nautical miles to degrees.
Yeah. He's talking about the baseline, right? That angle on it. He wasn't talking about a horizontal circle.
No.
When you're talking about the circumference.
No, he's just
That's
taking a number in miles, dividing it by 60, and then coming up with all of the values from 1 through 360. But I'm saying, no, stop at 180. Anyway, let's not dwell on this too much. Let's carry on.
So some of you might be whipping out calculators and working out things here and there. And of course, a lot of the time, the distances are averaged out. So we have the globe Earth radius averaged to 3,440 nautical miles, or 3,959 miles, 6,371 kilometers. And of course, when we're talking about this straight line here, we don't need any degrees. All right, so that would make the globe Earth diameter 6,880 nautical miles, or 7,918 miles, 12,742 kilometers. And then, of course, by doing these conversions using pi with either the radius or the diameter, we end up with a circumference for the globe Earth model of 21,603 nautical miles, or 24,901 kilometers, miles, and 39,350 kilometers.
Fine. So in pure maths, what he's done is absolutely fine. It's only if you're trying to suggest that you're doing this based on a measurement of Earth as opposed to just numbers on a table. But he is correct. There's nothing wrong with this, except if you tried to put any of the numbers beyond 90 into practical application when measuring. You couldn't do that. But there's nothing wrong with that. You could go on forever with the numbers, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is how they make the globe. I don't know. Is that in contention now?
No, it's just because I'm so familiar with the practical application of measuring Earth flat to give you a nautical mile distance, that when he's doing it the other way round to describe how the globe comes to fruition, it's alien to me. I've never done it in this way. We have never done it in this way, have we? We've explained it verbally, how they do it, how they do the conversion. Yeah. We've just never done it on paper with a spreadsheet with the numbers. We've never done this.
Well, I didn't do it with a spreadsheet, but I did it in my kitchen.
Yeah, you did it for your kitchen.
I think that I heard. Did I hear him say 21,603 miles? You can't have more than 21,600 if you're talking about them, because in nautical miles you can't have more. If you understand what I mean, because they're minutes of degree. You can only have 21,600 minutes of degree in a circle.
Right.
He was talking about a circumference there, and he put in the 3, because they probably worked with 3959, which is not correct, which would probably give you more.
And then, the average circumference.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, that was me. I just wondered, did you understand what I said?
Yes. Yeah, I'm following along.
Circumference of the Earth, globe Earth, is considered to be 21,638 because they talk about the difference between the equator and the poles, with the equator apparently bulging a little bit more, but the difference is kind of negligible, so you end up with an average. But we'll be using the 21,603 nautical miles as our circumference. So again, keep in mind that these distances are measured.
Pause, please. Sorry. Yeah. He's after making a mistake there, because this is the thing. And it's not his fault. This is not his fault, right? So I'm not pointing it at him. This is Nick, is it? Phuket word?
Yes.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah. It's not his fault. The circumference that they claim around their equator being bigger than the circumference around our poles, right? That circumference is not part of their geometry. That's only a pre-assumption based off of the pre-assumption that they're on a globe that's rotating. So the pre-assumption is that it's getting slightly wider at their equator, because of centrifugal force. That's actually not part of their geometry. Their geometry can't go past 21,600 nautical miles because it has to match. It can't be any more than the length of 2 longitude lines. And each longitude line can only be a maximum of 10,800. So if you add 10,800 and 10,800, you end up with 21,600. Can't be more than that. So if you understand what I mean.
3 miles, Brian. Come on, man.
It's not his fault. It's not his fault. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's not correct. Just pointing out that it's incorrect. It's not his fault. He's working with their maths, right? That's all I'm saying. Because technically, he'd have to change the nautical to statute conversion for the globe around the circumference of the equator, as opposed to how it's used for the poles. What they actually do is they use it for the poles, because if this is the problem, you can see the globe has problems straight away, because technically the longitude lines wouldn't fit on the globe. They would be too small compared to what he's after putting out there. If their equator, geometrically was wider, they couldn't use longitude lines because they're not going to be correct. They'd have to have all kinds of conversions. Anyway, it's a sticky point.
It's worth reiterating because it's the bit that we lead with, or I do, when we're talking about the minimum elevation angle to Polaris. I mean, there is no south-based measurement, but the latitude system, as you describe it, wraps back around to form the bottom section based on the same representation of a measurement to Polaris. So you've only got one measurement that gives you the outside edge of their sphere, and it is pole-based. Now, obviously, there is no pole. You need a flat Earth to even describe the actual rotation, but the point of the measurement is it's a measured value that will back calculate into the movement of the lights in the sky. You've got to start with something. Outside edge of their sphere is where they've started. Pole-based, as Brian's just pointed out, it's worth reiterating, Brian, because that's, like I say, what we talk about, isn't it? We don't do it in this way. It's good that there's someone else doing it in a different way because it gives us food for thought.
Well, yeah, what it is what Nick is doing. He's working with their maths and their claims about a bigger circumference for their equator, which breaks the geometry that gave them the globe. If you understand what I mean, they can't have more than 21,600 nautical miles around that equator. They can't. That's the point. And you know what it is? This is another thing. Just like with a lot of people we deal with and things we deal with in this arena, the globers will jump from one to the other, because the globers will state that there is an exact conversion of nautical statute around their equator, but then they'll bring in centrifugal force and say their equator is bigger than their polar circumference. It's like, no, you've just broken that geometry.
Yeah, they won't back engineer it. Like you say, that's just a story. That's not part of their geometry. It's just a story. It's just part of. It's not the geometry. The geometry comes from flat plane measurements, and those measurements involve 180 degrees and 10,800. They would involve the measurement. The measurement from Polaris's GP to the equator is 5,400 miles either side. That's 10,800. Yep.
You then double that to go out to 90 degrees south. Right, so you can't have more than 21,600. You can't. That's the most.
Brian, it's fine. It's just called pear-shaped geometry. It's okay.
Yeah, but it isn't. No. It's not pear-shaped geometry.
Periodicity.
It isn't. Hold on, let me just correct him. Sarcastic or otherwise, I need to correct that. It's not, because it's not pear-shaped geometry. It's just a story. That whole pear-shaped bit bigger at the equator, it's just a story. It cannot be that, because it won't back engineer or back calculate, or however you want to describe it, into the flat plane measurements that are actually utilizable with the stars. So it can't be their story. So it's just that you said geometry next to pear-shaped that's got me piping up chocolate. Sorry.
No, it can't. It's just an add-on, because they presume that they're on a globe that's rotating. So they add on this bigger equator. It's Neil deGrasse Tyson, saying it's a little bit pear-shaped. It's like, no, it's not. It has to be, a little bit chubby, exactly. But whereas in geometric reality, it has to be a perfect sphere. Not that they have it in reality, but look, it's a bit of a sticky point. But I just want.
Sorry, Brian. I was gonna say, plus that's kind of what they show us, like a perfect sphere. So imagine showing you a perfect sphere and then telling you, yeah, that perfect sphere you got is pear-shaped. It's ridiculous.
Shout out
It
to
is ridiculous, and I really was just trying to, before someone attacked Nick on that, that's not his fault. He's just working with their maths. So
Oh, I see.
he
Yeah.
worked with their maths, and that's what
Very
he got.
compassionate of
You know
you.
what I mean?
No, that's you're right. I think that's possibly why he's put it under our nose. So, good. Anyway, shout out to us so far. We're all anticipating your new book, Jolly Good. Will this new dynamic of converting these FE measurements into a globe make it into the book? Great review, by the way. Thank you very much for the super chat so far. Yeah, absolutely. It is the base premise of the book. That's all the book's about. Hence the title, All Roads Lead to a Flat Earth. Well, those roads start at a globe. So a lot of what the book does, as much as it's to my frustration, details things that we have done for the last 10 years about how the globe doesn't work. But it's always with a view to linking it back into how the world is flat for that to be achieved. Like I say, that's why the title of the book has been changed from Housekeeping, which is what it was originally about, to All Roads Lead to a Flat Earth. So that's what the most of the work is. It's the 80-20 rule. So to get to the book being 80% done took about 20% of the time. And then to get the last 20% done takes about 80% of the time. It's like when you make something, you get it basically done, and then the details and the refinement and the polishing take exponentially longer than it took to get the thing together as a whole. So that's kind of where we're at now. But we're doing it again tomorrow. It's Tuesday today, right? Yeah, tomorrow, Wednesday, we're doing a bit more on the book. There's only a couple of more chapters to do. And that's it. I'm really hoping we can get it out for Christmas. But that, we work to standards, not to time. And as much as my desire to pay a few more bills through book sales, it's got to be of a really high standard. And frankly, it could have come out in a really crappy format 8 months ago. It just wouldn't have been a great book. It would have sold, and I'd have been moderately happy with it because it had been selling. But beyond describing the housekeeping and what they all mean and a bit of story about flat earth debate, which is what the book started off as, that would have been all right. And maybe the next book would have been even better. But in this case, it's just like we're telling people in these Discord chats, start on the front foot and put it out as it needs to be. That is to say, as the ultimate flat earth reference book, with every detail you could ever need to know about why Earth has become spherical with flat Earth measurements, as that's what you're asking about us so far. Right the way through to every reference you could need that debunks gravity, and the glossary in the back's going to be as amazing as the book, and it's going to take a hell of a lot of work. But for all the references and citations that are within the body of the book, they'll all be in the glossary. So it might be that a third of the book is glossary, which is fine because it's just those are all the references that should and need to be there, and they'll be there complete, even if they're already in the body of the text with quote marks around it. So it's going to be a very complete book. It'll be a satisfying book to own because of the dense nature of the information that will be within the book, rather than a story about me, flat earth debate, and housekeeping questions, which is how it started. So yeah, hope it comes out at Christmas. I hope lots of people buy it. And then recommend it to others and gift it to people. Not because it'll just earn me money, which is obviously good too, but because of the amount of work and the quality of the book. And that's not just down to me and my hard work. It's down to a huge number of people that have had an input in the book. Obviously, all their faces. Some of them are on the panel right now. Right? So from that perspective, it's not just had a few people look over it to see that it's okay. It's been as heavily scrutinised as Witsit. And I'm not even joking. Hopefully a few people on the panel will back me up in terms of the level of scrutiny that my book has gone under. Depressing at the start. I got used to it. Having bits of it ripped to shreds. Go ahead, whoever that was.
It was so irritating because for you to debunk the globe claim, since it is being treated as a reference book, you have to find a reference for that claim. And that's when you start finding out how hard it is for the primary source evidence of these claims.
Exactly.
It becomes like an ambiguous thing that you're trying to debunk, and so you have to do the best with what you got, I guess.
That's an interesting take because I hadn't really thought about it in that way. One of the things we're finding, as John's just pointed out, is that the Feast of Nonsense, as we call it, is more prevalent That's not well backed by really high quality sources, but it's prevalent. So when you actually come to the rhetoric that someone who's a high priest could disseminate, someone like Cox or Tyson, they give you the real, genuine globe earth rhetoric from the high priesthood, approved by the church. Now that's the actual globe earth rhetoric. So when, it wouldn't be a shock or useful in a media context if someone like Cox turns around on a BBC documentary and says, there isn't really a force of gravity at all. If that was common knowledge, he wouldn't be a high priest telling you about this, wow, amazing revelation that there isn't a force of gravity. Yeah? Therefore, what does that translate to when we're trying to cite stuff and reference stuff? Well, it's few and far between. But when you do find them, they're really good. So the most recent one was found by Adam, and it's Sagan. And it's just so beautiful, man. It's gone from me, and I have to do myself down a little bit because it's true, right? I'm picking out wiki references, and same with my publisher. He's picking out better references than me. I'm picking out a fairly low standard because I'm just getting the job done. QE or Adam or whoever it may be, Adam in this instance, comes along and is like, nah, that's not a good reference. So then we'll spend as a group collectively maybe 2 or 3 hours searching for that perfect reference. Yeah? Now, the last time, as I say, this happened, it was Carl Sagan. And it's so beautiful because he's babbling on about science this and science that. Now, I think it's in a citation about Al-Biruni. But all the other little nuggets and nutshells that the book is about, the hijacking of science being one of them, is exemplified beautifully by Carl frickin' Sagan in this one citation about Biruni. Now, it took Adam an eternity to track this bloody thing down, going through dross after dross and us reading through it going, no, I don't like this now. And then suddenly, bang, here's Sagan. And Adam's all excited like a little giddy schoolboy. Listen to this. He's reading through it and reading through these big chunks, because he took a fair chunk of it, right? And the reason we did was because it was gold. All of it was gold, right, from Carl Sagan. It just summed up the tone of flat earth debate beautifully with what we brace against with him. Like I say, talking about science. Well, go on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I ain't saying that citation wasn't a good illustration, but what he says within that citation, there's no primary source evidence for.
No.
It's just an ambiguous bullcrap that's been thrown out of his mouth. He's regurgitated, and that's what we have to deal with. It's ridiculous.
Right, so he's got inaccuracies and errors in the rhetoric because there's no primary sources. For example, when he's talking about sticks and shadows, he talks at cross purposes with himself in the example because it's a well and an obelisk, right? But then halfway through the story, he's talking about sticks and shadows and angles from them. So you're like, well, why is it this way? Why is he, even the high priest, getting it wrong and contradicting him? Not contradicting himself, just kind of a loose story, let's just say, which it is. Well, because there's no primary source evidence. And I was going back thousands of years to get this stuff because it doesn't exist.
The well and obelisk thing is too big for people to take on themselves, or it sounds too big. Whereas if you tell people about sticks and shadows, anyone can do that in their back garden. So anyone can prove the globe in their back garden with sticks and shadows. And that's what they'll think they'll be doing. So people like Simon Dan can go out with a stick into his back garden and do whatever technically, you can still do it, right, with sticks and shadows. But that's not the original claim. The original claim is a well in Cyan and an obelisk in Alexandria. Not some stick, not some pole, 2-foot pole you hammer into the grass in your back garden.
Exactly.
But that's, it's pretend you're measuring a globe at home. That's what the sticks and shadows are.
Right. But in writing the book, and this is testament to all of us, right? But I think in this instance, the driving force to make it more concise is QE from memory. This is going back about a week now to the last book session. Anyway, he's driving us to make that point that Brian's just made in about 2 or 3 sentences, right? No bother. But when you're in a live stream conversation between Brian and myself in this example, you can illustrate that point with 2 or 3 sentences, and it doesn't seem over the top. It doesn't seem like Brian's used 20 words where he could have used 1. But when it's in text, oh, it's a different story. We need 2 or 3 words to summarize what Brian's just said. Yeah? And the way it ended up being done, you'll get to this point in the book when you read it and go, oh, yeah, I remember them talking about this bit, where it just says, what happened to Wells and Obelisk? Yeah? So it's turned from a 2 or 3 sentence description of what's occurring to a 2 or 3 word summary that encompasses the contradiction, the change in story, and, you know, lack of aspects and rhetoric that don't make any sense anymore. But we've got to do that in 2 or 3 words. So that one sentence probably took 20 minutes. You know, that gives you an idea of the 80-20 rule that I'm talking about, just to round out that response to the super chat. That was a long segue away from Nick. Anybody got anything to add, as we've just had a fairly lengthy chat about the book, and everyone on the G Plus panel at least has been involved at some stage? Yes, Nathan, we can't wait for you to profit from our hard work. Oh, I'm so grateful that you're all so kind to me.
I got something to say. All I know is the corridors of apathy better wind up in the book somewhere.
What, some poetic sounding sentence that Adam rattled off when he was drunk once?
Yes, it was classic. You'll hear it.
I mean,
Adam was never drunk.
I mean, when Adam was high on life, generally speaking, and came up with something quite poetic. Right, should we get back into Nick Phuket Word? We've actually done surprisingly well. We're 5 minutes into his video.
Across a level surface, and then they are converted into degrees to assume that they are part of a curved surface, equating to 360 degrees. So now let's get back to the whiteboard.
No, that's not correct. So he's missed a step. You measure them in degrees to give you the nautical miles. Then PZX conversion in the modern standard that gets you to project a globe from this equatorial plane up to the globe, and then through the globe and the extended celestial plane. It's not just a mere conversion from the miles to the degrees, because the degrees are a measurement. So
it is, Nathan.
Again?
No, it's actually no. The PZX thing is how they place points of coordinates onto the surface of the sphere. Where they get the sphere from is just taking those measurements, right? That gave us longitude lines, and just taking 2 opposing longitude lines and making the south ends of them meet. That gives them their sphere.
Is it really that?
That's literally all they have to do.
Is it really that basic?
That's it. That's all they have to do. I could do the maths for you right now.
I'm not saying the maths is... It's not because it's the simple maths. I'm just... In my mind, there's more to it, right? Now, I get it, because I think it was about a year and a half ago, refracted curvature, then refracted curvature, was explaining about the haversine conversion. Now, the haversine conversion comes long after the globe already exists, right? So, in other words, you've already got a globe at that point. They're doing something in addition to create grids on the globe, or whatever it is they're doing with haversine conversion. But it isn't necessary, is it? You've already got a globe at that point, haven't you? At the point in history that you do haversine. But for me, I'm nearly there. I'm just explaining my way of thinking. In my mind, well, they must have excuse me. They must have done something more complex to achieve this end. And in spite of the amount of times you've gone through this dozens of times with us, right, Brian? I can't accept that it's this simple. It seems wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because all it is that they took what was for them to convert degrees or minutes of degrees into land or into a surface distance, they had to use statute miles or stadia or whichever, right? But then they needed to convert those, which are horizontal distances, into what would be a nautical mile. So what would 1 minute of degree be if we were to convert it into these land or these surface distances, right? So let's just say with statute miles, there's a conversion, right, from statute to nautical, right? So they start off by having to figure out the statute mile distances for 1 degree. They figure that out, right, or whatever, and then they have to convert. They convert. So what would that be for nautical miles? So they just whatever, like that turned out to be 69.048 statute miles, gave them 60 nautical miles. That's a horizontal measurement distance, right? So once they had that conversion, all they had to do, like once they had that conversion, and once they then were using this, all they had to do, because what they're working with then is once they have the latitude and longitude grid laid out, they're working with longitude lines, which are straight line horizontals from the GP point of Polaris. All they have to do at that point is take any two opposing ends of these longitude lines at south-facing ends, and meet them underneath, bend them down mathematically just to meet underneath the north, and that gives them a radius. Because what that'll do is that will give them, because each longitude line is 10,800 nautical miles, right? So two of them together is an exact circle of 21,600 nautical miles, right? Or minutes of degree. Because once you turn it into a circle, it becomes minutes of degree.
Okay.
And
well, that means I've got to make a. Well, then, based on the way this has gone, I've got to make a retraction about saying he was wrong in terms of the way he's describing this beyond 180. He needs to put it down in the maths with 360 to achieve what you've just described. He's just describing it in a very different way, and halfway through, I haven't realised that. So where I'm saying no, that's wrong. He's not describing the physical acquirement of the angle to convert to nautical or statute miles. He's taking the nautical and statute flat distances and converting them back to, well, exactly the same degrees, but for a sphere, right? Because that's as simple as it gets. So, yeah, he's absolutely justified in having 360 in there. So I take it all back, Nick. My criticism was completely invalid.
Yeah, he's just...
it's actually...
Go
on, John.
At that point, you don't have a globe. You have the you describe making the celestial sphere.
Yes.
Yeah, but see, both of them
have to project those angles out with a radius value to get to the celestial sphere. So you need a transformative equation.
No, not for to come up with your globe, you don't.
The celestial sphere, you don't.
But to come up with the globe, you don't need to come up with the geometry for a globe. You don't need the celestial sphere.
Hold on. Hold on.
Your
Brian, hold on.
Sorry,
you're saying for it to be functional, you're saying you need the transformative equation, aka haversine. Do you need that for it to be functional, operational? Because we're just saying to create the sphere, you just need to do what Phuket's doing and what Brian's just detailed. For it to be useful, do you need to?
Sphere.
Yeah, you're creating a celestial sphere, but you can also, with what Brian and Phuket have described, calculate, whatever you want to call it, a globe at 54 times 2 for the total diameter. 5,400.
You could do it that way, but you would run into problems, like he pointed out, with longitude and latitude. You need a way to take your eye, the point from which you're making these observations, and make it the vertex of all angles, and then erase the plane of reference and make everything a projection from that.
And that's haversine conversion, right? With PZX triangles.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you're creating the globe, the geometry for the globe, you don't need to do anything other than take the measurements. Once you have the latitude and longitude grid, all you have to do is make any two opposing south ends of that grid meet. Then they will meet underneath the north. North.
I don't think John's denying
that gives you your globe.
I don't think he's denying that. I think it's more the fact that what from what I'm sensing from what John's saying, there is a more profound implication. Correct me if I'm wrong. Reflected. Until haversine, is there a practical way to use the globe or make it seem like the globe is useful pre-haversine?
No.
Isn't that interesting? When's haversine conversion? This is 100 and how many years? It's not very long, is it?
No, it's not. I don't know how old haversine is, but it's not. It's certainly not. Like it can't be older than the globe.
No, it can't.
So it can't be any more than 300
that's the
years.
point. It can't be older than the globe. Very profound statement. That's right. Pre that point, whatever the time is, do you know when the time is, John, for haversine? Because before that time, the globe has
Absolutely
no
not, no.
practical use, does it?
No, it isn't until they can project those angles out from the flat plane that's when they can say, "This is where we live," and
Right.
have that.
They can't deny the
magic.
functionality of the plane until they can produce that conversion. But therefore, the globe doesn't actually come into real effect until that is done, until haversine. So pre-haversine, there can't be a globe belief, can there? Because you can't justify its practical use until haversine's in effect.
No, but you can't, because you need haversine to convert for navigation.
Holy shit. Well, that means the timeline's now narrowed down for when I can't quite believe I'm proving myself right when I say now the timeline seems to be between 2, maybe 3 at the most 100 years for the globe as an accepted Western world religion, like it is. We all are in agreement that everybody accepts that the world's a globe in the world at the moment. But that has only been in effect, or could have only been in effect since haversine. Isn't that amazing? So the globe as a way of being, as a way of understanding the world to be, is really short, isn't it?
Well, it is a lot shorter than they're making it out to be. I mean, historically, we could only actually, if we go geometrically and historically, we match the two together, you could only go, you can only go from Kepler on. That means there was no globe before Kepler, even regardless of what they tried to tell you.
Right.
Historically.
I knew that, but that's long enough for it to be long ago for me, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's shorter than that.
Just
let me just round it out one more time. But it's shorter than that, much shorter than that. You can have the existence of a globe, like we're describing, and you can mathematically create it as Phuket's going through and we're critiquing. But in terms of having the one world religion, heliocentrism, globe Earth, that it has not been possible to be in effect for a very long time at all. Very short, in fact. What's the date on haversine? Somebody look it up.
I'll look it up, but before I do, what they did is after haversine, they hijacked the celestial sphere, which had been around since the Greeks, and said they believed that Earth was a sphere, and this is the diagram that they proved it with. You see what I mean?
Yeah, started saying that the celestial sphere is effectively the globe when it's just the celestial sphere.
Yeah, but do you know what
it might
haversine
be
is
even
for?
shorter than we're thinking. Because I mean, it might be anecdotal, but there are people who are still alive talking about they remember when it was being taught flat.
That's fine. That's the end of the transition. So I know what you're talking about. You're talking about people who are out in the wild west that had been taught flat Earth until they remember a changeover period within their 101 or 102 year lifetime at the time that they've been interviewed. Yes, there are plenty of anecdotes about that, and even TV series. I think it's Little House on the Prairie, which I used to watch when I was a kid. Not that I can remember this episode, but there's a particular episode where somebody, sacrilegious that they are, comes along and starts talking about the globe. And they're like, no, we need to start teaching these newfangled ways because that's how the world really is. And the priest gets annoyed and is like, why are you bringing in this Satan tree? And, because it's portrayed as though at this particular time in history, these people, fictional though they are in this TV series, are being taught Earth's flat, and there's a transition to being taught Earth's a globe. Now, that would have been around while those people that we're talking about now that are in their, late hundreds, potentially, very, very old people that have been asked these questions, they might have been in their 60s and 70s and definitely cognitively not impaired. They'd remember. So if you started bullshitting about it then and not having these sort of changeover narratives that can definitely be talked about by grandma, and you just started lying about them, grandma would have something to say about them. So these transitional periods, or the end of the conversion to heliocentrism, the last points where the the people who can remember it die off. The flat earthers who were just, under no impression till the changeover, they've all died. That has happened. Oh, I'm going to say probably within our lifetime. Isn't that nuts? The final transition to this current religion, where everyone believes it, has actually only just ended. The transition has only just ended within our lifetime. That to me is nuts.
I have that.
Go
on. James Andrew is credited with it in 1805, but there is conjecture that Jose de Mendoza y Rios did it in 1801.
This is haversine. So that's it. So when I said 200 to 300 years, it's a couple of 100 years since the globe could start to take effect. And the closing, so it's taken about 100 to 150 years to convert the entire world to believing that they're on a sphere. I've got goosebumps. I can't quite believe I'm saying these things. It does make me proud to be a flat earther. There's 100 people watching, right? If you're sharing this moment with us, I'm glad you're here with us, because I've got goosebumps. We're on the cutting edge of this subject, but sometimes, thanks in this case to Nick just covering something in a way that we don't normally cover it, we're starting to think about things in different ways and come to realizations about just how short-lived this globe propaganda is. It's so new. That is, and also that's why they've had to overtly lie about thousands of years and the history of Greeks knowing it's a globe and all this kind of tripe. That's why they've had to do it, isn't it? Because it's really new. But nobody knows that. As far as everybody's alive today is concerned, we've known it's a globe for thousands of years. No, you haven't. Au contraire.
Just
and I think all those fancy stories of Aristophanes and all that, I think that was all just made up very recently. Like how do you how do you actually confirm that this guy Aristophanes existed and did what he did all those years ago?
You can't. There's no primary source evidence. John already pointed that out before you got everything.
Just to point out something here, right? That I was trying to point out in the past, but it wasn't landing. Right? Pardon the pun, because I'm going to talk about aviation. The point of the haversine formula is a way of converting, right? But they must convert. You see, what they're converting, or how they must convert from actual distances to globe distances, is they've got to take the run line distances and convert them to match what would be a great circle route. Because in aviation, right, and just in the use of the globe in general, in any way, for navigation, the run line distances are normally the more correct distances, right? But they're longer than what they call great circle route distances. And the reason they're longer is because the great circle route distance must adhere to the full length of two, well, it can't be any greater than the full length, or can't be greater than the full length of two longitude lines, let's just say, because a great circle is going to be 21,600 nautical miles, right? But the problem is that when you flatten out the map, right, then you've got and this is the whole purpose of the conversions, is you don't have in reality, the longitude lines are not meeting south underneath the north at a south point. They're not doing that. They're conversion. They're diverging out. So that creates distances that don't match with those correctly. So the only time they can use what they call great circle routes is when they're doing exact north to south or south to north. Right? They can't use great circle routes outside of that. So, and most flights or journeys are not exactly north-south or south-to-north. So they're always using run line distances and converting them back to a great circle route distance or that type of thing. They're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they can use one latitude with haversine, only one, and that's the equator.
But see, but even at that, what they're doing is still a conversion they're still converting from run line distances, which are the distances that are generally used. Most distances that are big in distance are run line distances. Because the great circle route distances and the run line distances only somewhat match at the small distance. But if you were to fly, like, say, commercial airline distances, you need to use run line distances. Because the great circle route distances don't match, because the reason is, right, they make up a lot of rubbish, but the reason is that the longitude lines are diverging from the north. They're not converging again at the south. So they end up with distances that are not matching what they need them to match for it if they're trying to hijack those two longitude lines and turn them into a globe. The point is that the haversine formula is and always was a joke, a way of them converting reality into globe, and that's all it ever was.
Any other comments? If not, we'll carry on with a bit more of Nick.
And see how this all works.
I'm going to send you a video a little bit later to look at. Nathan.
Okay. Oh, you just wanted to tell me that? Yeah, cool.
Board and have a look. Over here I'm going to put how this translates to a globe model. So first of all, let's look at how celestial navigation and working out distances for latitude are worked out. So the title is very simple: how flat Earth distances are converted into degrees for a globe model. So here we have the level surface. It could be the water, it could be the ground, and we have an observer here. Okay, he's on a boat and he's using a sextant or some kind of device to look at what could be the sun or Polaris, okay, an object in the sky that's used as a reference. So directly under that sun or star is the ground point, all right? So we're going to work out in celestial navigation terms how far this person is from that ground point. So that's basically how distances were worked out. Doesn't matter whether you assume the surface to be curved or level. Physically, it's level, and it is assumed to be level like this. Now the
not assumed, measured.
Bone of contention that globe Earth believers will have about level is the assumption that when you draw parallel vertical lines like this, that those parallel lines are not parallel. They eventually converge in the center of an assumed globe. But you have to have some measurements and calculations to get there first. So we have our guy on a boat.
Well, you'd need a center of a globe to be assuming that your lights converge in. And you get that globe from a flat Earth, as Nick's presumably going to go through now.
Using a sextant.
What's the second?
And so...
Ed?
Very quickly, just a sidebar. That's a good point you made concerning the haversine formula. And I've been thinking about it, and I don't think there's any way for them to use a globe without that formula.
No! That was what I was telling the audience. If you're involved in this moment, and I've got... Yeah, that's exactly the point. Yeah. There can't be a globe prior to that. And from memory, when, again, John was telling us about this, they had a big competition. There was a big deal about made about getting this achieved. Well, now we know why.
Yeah, I understood the point. Like, I mean, I was following at the very start. I was like, I didn't want to jump on it immediately. It was like, right, how else could? There's just no other way. There's no other way to convert what would be realistic distances and journeys onto the face of a globe. You would require that. You can't use the celestial dome without that. Do you know what I mean? You can't. You require the haversine formula to do any of these conversions. If you don't have that, it's over. Very good point, Nathan.
It just shortens the timeline again, and I'm stuttering away because it's exciting, but it's also quite scary. Because if you shorten the timeline that much, you're like, well, then in recent history, some of the names of our recent past and some of the events of our recent past will tally with this deception. Now, when you think about it like that, you go, oh, what events tally with this globe deception then? Because there's far more to it in our recent history in terms of what is being done to persuade everyone into this one world religion. And that has been happening and is still happening now. So it's not like we're led to believe, fighting against a rhetoric that's been in place forever. And what difference could we make? No. The conversion's still occurring, right? They're still converting the world as we know it to this one world religion as we speak. It's ongoing. We're still involved in the changeover. Now that is my mind just going. That's just
so
astonishing.
What you're saying is we're in the middle of the paradigm shift while trying to change paradigm.
Yeah, we think we're trying to change the paradigm to flat Earth, when in reality we're involved in the process of changing it to globe Earth. It hasn't ended yet because it only started recently. So this whole need to make people think that we always knew we were on a globe is part of that. Now, to me, I keep saying it. I'm just quite amazed at this revelation as we sit here. I've always suspected it, and I've tried to allude to it to the audience in terms of what we do know of a short timeline. But we don't know the half of it, do we? This is an ongoing endeavour.
No, see, they're giving us the impression that this was established 2,000 years ago. That's what they give the public the impression of in school and wherever else. When the truth is that they're actually in the process of trying to turn the boat around to go the wrong direction. And we are now trying to re-establish. We're all up in the wheelhouse fighting.
We're hitting the e-brake.
Yes.
Yes. Go back.
Why are we such a massive threat? Why the censorship? Why is it all needed? Exactly. We're in the wheelhouse with them. They're trying to turn the ship around towards a globe Earth understanding for the world. And it hasn't actually turned. The ship hasn't turned yet. And we're in the freaking wheelhouse. No wonder we're a massive threat. They're that close to converting, current tense, the world to the one world religion. That means it hasn't actually happened yet. So it's not convert people away from what they always knew to be the case, that they're always on a globe. No, that's why it's everywhere and why it's so brazen. You think, why is it needed to keep this indoctrination? Is it like, was it Goebbels, keep the lie constant and big? Yeah, when you're in the process of telling the lie, because we're in the process of the globe lie and the deception being committed. They haven't got away with it. They're still in the process of trying to get away with it. Isn't that nuts? And it could all crumble. The lie could fall apart before it's taken seed. That's why we're a threat.
And what group of people in the world are you allowed to say anything about? A group completely unprotected.
Gingers?
Group.
Gingers?
Flat earthers.
Oh, and flat
Anything
earthers.
goes.
Yeah, gingers and flat earthers. Yeah, basically say whatever you like about them.
But do you remember what's that famous? Not Walt Disney, but somebody said, "Give me 7 generations or 3 generations or something like that of children, and I can change the world into something else." Something like that. Wasn't there some quote from someone famous concerning this type of thing? Changing, basically, I can change. It was some quote that was along the lines of, "I can change this whole paradigm by just giving me 2 generations of children, and I'll indoctrinate them to believe something else." It was something like that. I can't remember what it was. Someone out there will remember it. But it's very true if you think about it right now, because that's what they're trying to do. So, we were part of that. We were one of those kids.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, no, I think it's more than that. So you need 3 generations to change the paradigm, to get people to start to believe they're on a ball, with all the like haversine conversion and things like that to bolster it, to lay the foundations. But once you've done that 3 generational, then they all think they're on a ball. Yeah, you've got to have all of them pass it on to their kids and die out. and all of the generations in between. So it's more like 7 generations. I know you said that just off the cuff incorrectly, but I would say that's probably more about what you'd need, about 7, to have every bugger that's ever known the functional nature of Earth die, and every remnant's wiped out in terms of, for instance, we're saying, well, we functionally utilise flat Earth elevation angles. Well, in the same way as haversine has been brought to fruition to wipe away the plane, you'd need to do that for all sorts of other things. That might take another 50 to 100 years, and then you've got another 3 generations that need to forget about all that. But all of that is almost in the background now. We can still find it because it's still used. But if you're the powers that should not be and can mathematically, with the hive mind of your Craigs and your Simon Dans putting their heads together to figure out the best explanation as we oppose it, it drives the hive mind to figure out explanations on behalf of their religion. So in other words, we're put to task.
Just a quick search. The quote seems to be, "Give me just 1 generation of youth and I'll transform the whole world." End quote. Vladimir Lenin.
Scary stuff. Nice to be on the outside of it, looking in with bemusement and fascination. I like my job. I really, really do. It's days like this that make me so proud to call myself a flat earther. Yesterday, in the presence of Witsit Shitsit, I felt pretty dirty saying I was a flat earther, I'll be honest. Today, I couldn't be prouder. Anybody else feel the same?
I'm sorry, Nathan. Did you hear the quote? Did you hear me just now?
To get a what?
Did you hear the quote just
now? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
We heard Vladimir's words.
Well, what I would say is that Witsit is focused on other things. Someone like Witsit, let's say, those type of people in the community, they're focused on other things as opposed to being focused on the more important stuff. That are focused on PR and other things like that, as opposed to being focused on the actual getting to the bones of the truth, which is why they end up making up their own version of truth. You know, dielectric acceleration and ether and all these other things. And in a way, that's a bit of a weird offshoot for the mainstream, who are trying to, like, basically we're in the wheelhouse, and there's splinter groups off of the flat earthers coming up with dielectric acceleration, and upward rising Earth and all this other stuff. And even if some of those splinter groups are being nurtured by the globe side, the point being is that they are going to become monsters that the globe will have to deal with as well. It's kind of messed up, isn't it? So the wheelhouse is just full of gangs fighting for control of the wheel.
Yeah, but by the same token, would you not agree that here we're like, go with whatever belief you want if you want to. Don't, or at least I say this, I'm not responsible for your beliefs. You can believe whatever you want. But if you know how Earth's measured, then, you'll have to square that circle for your belief to function. It probably won't anymore. But for the rest of the world, they're looking in on this like we are the 7th generation and all of our descendants have always known we're on a ball. Therefore, you can now say with confidence, we always knew we were on a ball, because no more than, say, 7 or 8 generations have had this process. Therefore, as far as you will ever know or could verify, we've always known we're on a ball. But we haven't reached that stage yet, have we? These are the profound moments of realization that you don't get if you're just out there being a PR whore, is kind of where you're trying to compare it to Witsit, just to bring it back onto your point, Brian.
Well, no, you probably don't reach those kind of points. You end up taking things from other sources and using them. The other sources, you'll take something like that and use it, but your focus is PR. Your focus is promotion. So you're not focused on the right things, if you understand what I mean, in that way. But the best way to describe this situation is, Nathan, is remember the sci-fi series The V, or the movie They Live?
Yeah, They Live.
It's like this big evil force that's almost at the point of after winning, but there's a rebel force, and the same like in Star Wars, whatever, but there's a small rebel force that destroys the plans at the last minute. And that's what we kind of are. But this is kind of the last minute, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm kind of like Han Solo, and you're kind of like Chewbacca.
Hey, no, you're taller than me, so I'd be Han Solo.
Anyway, let's get back to
I
Nick.
know a dude that looks like an Ewok.
We've got another vertical line here. So we do in fact have parallel lines, and of course we have our horizontal reference here. So the surface is horizontal, and the observer's line of sight is also horizontal. Well, you need that for the angles that you're going to measure.
Yep. You need these axioms to hold true. Yeah, parallel, yeah. Eye level, yeah. Surface level, yeah. Yeah. Earth's measured flat, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so the way they do it in celestial navigation is we obviously, because of this horizontal here and this vertical here, we actually have a 90-degree angle either side of this vertical line. Okay, so you can call this horizontal perpendicular to down, or perpendicular to vertical, if you like, but horizontal it is. That's how it's done. So the person on the boat makes an observation to this sun or star, and there's going to be two angles here. There's going to be the angle between the horizontal, and that would be the observer's view of the horizon directly in front of them at eye level, and then up to here, okay, the angle of elevation, if you like. But what's actually measured in terms of making these observations is the difference between the vertical and the angle to the star or the sun over here. So the reading this person might get is something like 50, let's say this angle A is 50 degrees, okay? That's the...
Just to prop up what we do typically, and maybe this is why Nick's doing this, maybe it's not, it doesn't matter. But those who are regulars and listen to the show will be very familiar with what Nick's going through. This is what 10th Man took us through over a period of about 12 months, slowly dripping the information into us. So given that I was lucky enough to have that information drip-fed into me over a prolonged period, I would say that Nick's doing an exceptional job of detailing this thus far. You know, he's going to go through calculations of ground positions, or what he's calling ground points. Exceptional, wouldn't you agree? Great job, Nick.
Yeah, but it's Bosch time.
What are we boshing?
Welcome to flat Earth.
Yeah,
it's welcome to flat Earth. As soon as he drew that horizontal, it's over.
I
So
did it
all
for
the
him.
rest is
I
surplus.
did it for him. I did a Bosch. I did the Bosch. I was like, ladies and
You already
gentlemen,
did the
Earth
Bosch?
is measured flat.
You already did the Bosch.
Did Bosch? Yes, I Boshed. One has Boshed.
What the hell is the Bosch? What am I?
Bosch is what you do, right? When you're in the sales meeting and you're under pressure to get the deal in that'll actually take you over the limit, and you've got the side eye from the boss as he's about to start the meeting, and he looks to you, and first thing in the meeting opens is, "Did you get that deal?" And you turn over the contract and you go, "Bosch!" on the desk, and you go, "Yes, I did." That's Bosch. Bosch.
I just pictured that whole scenario in my head just
Right, pitch data. You're talking about flying and how planes behave. Bosh! Pitch data. Earth's flat. Yeah?
It's kind of like yelling domino, mother.
You got it. Right, in this instance, when Nick drew horizontal, described parallel, described eye level, described surface level, described perpendicular, every one of them could have been Bosh! Earth's flat. Bosh! Earth's flat. Bosh! Earth's flat. All of them. I did it for him.
Nathan,
I don't know why, but that's making me laugh. It's funny.
Nathan,
Go on, Brian.
do you know about the new housekeeping question?
Any evidence you can have pitch data on a globe?
No, the new one. Is there any evidence the globe existed prior to the haversine formula?
Weak.
What do you mean weak? We'll discuss this with Kiwi after. Anyway, we've got a Nick video to critique, so we'll come back to
He
this.
didn't come up with it. It's jealousy, Nathan.
Hey, I was just listening to a song, Hey Jealousy by the Gym Blossoms. Took me back to memory lane. That's surprising you would say that. Okay.
Jealousy.
There are no coincidences. This is sync.
We've got our 50 degree from vertical to that star. Okay. So then it's just a simple case of subtracting 50 from the 90 to get this angle here, which is going to be 40 degrees. So now, with these two angles, we can work out the distance between the ground point and the observer. So let's just put that in there.
That's another Bosch, by the way.
Yeah, he's working out a linear distance on a flat plane with a triangle. Earth's flat. Bosch.
Distance. What's that distance going to be? Well, as we saw earlier,
Going to be flat, but yeah, let's not say that.
We've got 60 nautical miles being equal to 1 degree. All right? So what we need to do is take this number that we worked out, the 40 degrees, okay? So what we have then is a simple equation of 40 degrees multiplied by 60, because...
So again, I'll just reiterate it's 10th drilled it into us so efficiently. So minus from 90, the measured angle, times by 60. He's gone through it really well. Props, Nick.
60 nautical miles is 1 degree. And that is going to give us 2,400 nautical miles. 2,400 nautical miles. And that is our distance. 2,400 nautical miles. Okay? So really what's that established for us? It's not necessarily the direction, but just the distance. If we do a top-down view, let's say that we are looking down at Polaris, and we've got this, now we have this distance of 2,400 nautical miles from this ground point, and but then that could be anywhere on this circle around the ground point. Okay, so we could be...
What kind of circle? What's it called? Anybody?
Of equal altitude.
Circle of equal elevation.
Bosh.
Bosh. Earth's flat. Every point on this circle is flat. It's a two-dimensional top-down view of a circle of equal elevation. Equal elevation is two-dimensional. This is a flat Earth prerequisite. Bosh.
Here, we could be here, we could be here, okay? That all comes down to longitude and other things, but for now we're just focusing on the distance, okay?
Okay. As we've got 100 people watching, please I'll say it correctly this time, rather than for the humorous effect of it. Phuket Word, which is the name of Nick's channel, and let Nick know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a polite comment that doesn't trigger the YouTube algorithm to remove you instantly or get Nick's heckles up. I'm speaking to the Globe believers. But please do like and subscribe, give Nick some love, leave him a comment, and just let him know that I sent you. He knows you're coming. He sent me to this video.
So over here now, we can see how the distance that we measured here by the angle on the flat Earth is converted into this globe model. Now, when you're talking about latitudes or great circles, it's very important to understand that this is not a slice of a globe. It is simply a two-dimensional circle that, of course, is 360 degrees. And so from our nautical miles and our degrees, basically 60 nautical miles equaling 1 degree, we can now put these two lines, we've got these two vertical lines here that we used on the level Earth to measure the distance, and they are put here going towards the center of this circle. And so you've got, here would be where the observer is, and here is that vertical line of the star or the sun, okay? So that would be the ground point, okay? So this GP here is the GP here on the globe model, and here is where the observer would be, okay? So we know that we got a 40-degree angle.
No. Not derived from the circle of equal elevation for this. It's derived from the equatorial plane, but you've got to have a celestial sphere wrapped around it. Is it me, or has he oversimplified this? Have I missed something?
I can't see what he's doing. Bosh.
Sorry.
Bosh. I can't see what he's doing, Nathan. Could you describe it?
Yeah, so. Oh, you got it. Can I just go all in on the first Bosch and prosecution rests?
That's not what we're doing. Yeah, yes, you can. And yes, I have. And absolutely. But Nick's asked me to critique, specifically, has he got how they convert flat Earth to globe correct? And at this point, I'm going to say no.
He's overcomplicated, like you.
Glad you're here.
Yeah, it's just you're all overcomplicating it. It couldn't be simpler. Remember I did that presentation called The Great Circle Hijacking on your channel about 2 years ago or more?
Yes.
Nathan? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
That was all about how they just hijacked the circle. They just turn two longitude lines, which are straight horizontals, that are opposing each other, they make the south ends of them meet, that gives them a circle. Right?
I'm not going to lie, Brian. I even remember the term.
Stop me every single time I go through this, and I mean every time, you stop me before I get to the end. And that's why you're missing it.
Just can't accept it. It's too simple.
Yeah, you can't. I don't know what's the problem.
I even remember the term, right? Hijacking a circle. I remember hearing it and going, nah, there's got to be more to it than this. And it just, I can't, it's difficult for me to absorb.
Yeah, it couldn't be more simple, right? They have the conversion between statute and nautical miles, right? Because the nautical mile, right, is the distance, the nautical mile distance has to be converted into statute, right? When they make the south ends of two opposing longitude lines meet, right, underneath the North Pole, they end up with a south end, and they do that with the rest of the longitude lines. They end up with a South Pole, right? That gives them a sphere. The radius of that sphere in nautical miles will be 3,400 and something, 39, I think, point something, right? When you convert that, right, from nautical back into statute, it gives you 3958 point blah, blah, blah. So, and they round it up to 3959. That is it. It could.
So it is as simple as from angle to distance, from distance back to angle.
You need the conversion from statute to nautical, and because that's what allows them to convert the radius that they will then have in nautical miles, which is mathematically incorrect because it's not on the surface of the Earth, right? But that radius converted into statute miles will be close to 3959. They round it off up to 3959.
Right.
Because if the 3959 is what? It's the median between their equatorial plane, equatorial circumference and their polar circumference. But their equatorial circumference has nothing to do with their geometry. It's a pre-assumption of rotation and centrifugal force. But the medium of that is 3959. But the actual number is very slightly less. It's 3958 point blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You mean the same radius that they're later going to change to prove the radius that they just changed?
Yeah, we're only talking about the geometry and the conversion at this point. But yes, in the stories, that's why they need it.
Brian, did you assert that longitudes are parallel to each other?
No, they can't be parallel to each other.
They're converging.
I thought I heard that.
No, they're all
No,
converging.
they're diverging. Diverging from a north center point. No, they can't be parallel to each other. How can they be parallel if they're all diverging from the same central point?
Is that because of the way that it's laid out on Mercator? Just so we're clear about why you're asking. Is it because of Mercator?
It was just, he made a comment, he said they're horizontal. Horizontal would be parallel to another horizontal. So when referencing the longitudes.
The horizontal orientation is, but the lines themselves are diverging from a north center point. So the lines are not parallel to each other. The parallel horizontals require horizontals at different altitudes.
Yeah, they're like spokes.
All the longitude lines are on the same altitude.
They're like spokes on a wheel.
Degrees.
They're like spokes.
Sorry.
On a wheel.
Yeah, but where a mistake has been made here, I know where some of that question is coming from. Probably coming from some of the stuff maybe Bev has done or whatever. Is that, but the longitude lines can be parallel to each other, right? But if you had another horizontal that was 10 foot above sea level, then that's parallel to sea level. And if that's directly north-south, pointing directly north-south, then that's parallel to a longitude line. But the longitude lines are all at the same level. You need horizontals at different elevations or different altitudes for there to be parallel horizontals. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, they're working their way up a globe that's been converted, but that's so that you can then project it out onto things like Mercator's, and then you do have these lines
it's not to do with the globe. But it's nothing to do with globe. This is just parallel horizontals. This is nothing to do with globe. The globe isn't literally. It can't even be involved because there's horizontal involved.
No, I'm only trying to incorporate it because that the only place that makes sense as a question to me is when you look at the parallel lines on the Mercator projection. That's it. That's the only place it makes any sense.
Yeah, because they make them parallel for the Mercator projection.
Yes.
They make the longitude lines. Yeah, sorry, Nathan. I apologize. They make them parallel, but that allows them to convert south of the equator to fit a globe. So that's incorrect.
And
the longitude lines have to diverge.
And then hide it all with.
Cash seems to think it is correct.
Well, I was just going to say, just to round that bit out, and they hide all that with time zones. That's a different story for a different day, but just to tag it on to
the time zone, they have to convert back then for time zones because the chronometer won't work with that.
Yes, but that's a story for a different day.
It won't work because the time zone is going to be wrong south of the equator.
Yeah, exactly. Big problem. Anyway.
I'm inviting Stinky Cash to join because he's giving us a hard time in chat. Join Stinky Cash, Mr. Content Creator.
Never mind the chat. Never mind the chat, Neil.
I've been keeping an eye on the chat.
No, the only reason I bring it up is because he's a flat earther and he's supposed to be a content creator, right? This is the opposition we're getting from flat earthers. Not boring.
If he's disagreeing with me, he's wrong.
Hold on. Tell us what's going on. I had been keeping an eye on the chat, but just not that closely, Neil. Tell us what's the skinny. Give us the lowdown.
Give me 1 second. He's going at it with TB. TB's trying to lay it down for him, and Stinky Cash is saying the only thing we just proved the globe or something like that. Let me see what he said. I'm saying that 1 arc minute is a different length at the Tropic of Capricorn than it is at the Tropic of Cancer. So assigning a fixed value to an arc minute makes no sense on a flat Earth.
It's not a different value. That comes from he's talking about globe. That comes from their claim that their equator circumference is bigger than their polar circumference. No, it can't be bigger. Right? If you're talking about that length along a longitude line, it can't be. A longitude line can't be any more than 10,800 nautical miles. Each one of those nautical miles is a minute of degree. They all are exactly the same size because that's what the conversion from nautical to statute. They can't convert. There's no different nautical to statute conversion. Everywhere you go, that conversion is the same. So how can you have basically a nautical mile being longer in one place than the other? No, this one doesn't know what he's talking about.
I have no idea what either of you are talking about. No offense to either of you or Stinky Cash, but I didn't follow along with that. I'm sure it made a lot of sense. And if anybody else is lost,
says, maybe this will clear it up. He says, because here's the problem. He's always going to a globe. On a globe, they use an average circumference of all the great circles. That is how they were able to assign a fixed linear value to a nautical mile.
That's incorrect.
No
There's
kidding.
no average. The great circle is all the great circles are the same. There's no average. They're all exactly the same size. He must think that the claim of a bigger equatorial circumference is part of a great circle. No, it's not. That's ballers putting out this information who didn't understand it themselves. So your information is coming from someone who didn't know what they were talking about.
Okay. Again, I'll assume that you made sense of whatever the critique is from Stinky Cash.
Well, look, Nathan, I invited him in. Maybe he'll come in Discord tomorrow, and we could set him straight, because I know I've heard him before. When I first came on the scene, I've heard some videos by him, but maybe he's just been out of the loop for a while.
Fair enough. Someone else in the chat was wanting an explanation on dip correction from memory at the request of Taboo Conspiracy. I highlighted some of the aspects that we're actually covering today, because this is obviously at its heart celestial navigation is what's being detailed with all of these measurements that Nick's going through. But with that in mind, I went through dip correction yesterday, and we'll trim it out so that it can eventually hopefully get slotted into a Taboo Conspiracy video. So for the guy who was asking in chat, he was saying something like, tell him what dip correction is, Nathan, to correct to the horizontal. I'm like, well, okay, I did that yesterday. We're covering Nick today. Check it out. It will become a shorts video just for you. Well, not just for you, really, for Ben, but you know what I mean.
Here, we could be here, we could be here, okay? That all comes down to longitude and other things, but for now we're just focusing on the distance, okay? So over here now, we can see how the distance that we measured here by the angle on the flat Earth is converted into this globe model. Now, when you're talking about latitudes or...
That's what I rewound for. It seemed like he missed a step. He's not described like equatorial minimums or anything to give him this circle with the angle coming from within. Now, fair enough. The angle that is measured on a flat Earth will end up inside a globe on an equatorial plane projected through it to the celestial sphere, right? Let's just see if I've got a diagram somewhere that I can actually... I'm on the wrong page I'm sharing with you guys. We'll worry about that later. But it's just jumped from the angle being on a flat plane to the angle being in a globe. Well, with all due respect to Nick, he hasn't shown where that globe comes from to put this angle in. Furthermore, he's not got the angle on a plane of reference, which it has to be, even when it's in a globe. They still need the equatorial plane to make this functional. So, to me, I think Nick's missed a step. Would you all agree?
Because I don't know where he's going with it. He hasn't finished his full process.
Fine.
He has.
Should have learned my lesson from last time. I'll probably end up retracting stuff. Let's just play it through then.
Great circles. It's very important to understand that this is not a slice of a globe. It is simply a two-dimensional circle that, of course, is 360 degrees. And so from our nautical miles and our degrees, basically 60 nautical miles equaling 1 degree, we can now put these two lines. We've got these two vertical lines here that we used on the level Earth to measure the distance, and they are put here going towards the center of this circle. And so you've got, here would be where the observer is, and here is that vertical line of the star or the sun, okay? So that would be the ground point, okay? So this GP here is the GP here on the globe model.
I think he has that a little bit wrong.
Here is where the observer...
Exactly.
What's he doing?
Exactly. That's where
would be in the center.
Exactly. That's where I stopped before and then rewound so you could hear the lead up to this. So the GP point, it may meet some point on the equatorial plane inside the globe for a PZX triangle to be projected out like the outside edge of this circle is the outside edge of the globe, but he's just missed a huge chunk. I'm right, am I? He has missed a huge chunk of stuff.
Where he's going wrong is he's placing the observer on the circle as opposed to in the center.
Yeah.
Right. That's the problem. But he's also trying to give the appearance of 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional board. And that's what he's also trying to do. So it looks like he's taking a slice of a circle there, but they're actually supposed to be, let's say, one of those is supposed to be horizontal, and the other one of those lines that's on his circle is supposed to be, from what I can hear him saying there, a vertical. You know what I mean? He just doesn't have 3D software to display what he's trying to display.
Yeah, we had the same trouble,
So
right?
you're saying
Sorry, let me just add this in. Thanks to 10th Man, I've got a whole bunch of diagrams with like globe burgers, as we call them, and what's the other one we call it? There's another one that's not a globe burger, a Dingleberry Earth, so that we can explain these conceptual reifications of tangent point dingleberries and equatorial planes inside hell. But in order to illustrate that and describe, as Nick's attempting to do here, you do actually need those diagrams to illustrate those conversions simplistically. But it's not as simple as Nick's doing.
Well, no, what he's doing is correct. He's pointing out. See, the problem is you're complicating.
No, I'm not.
Because you're going on about PZX triangles and all that.
Okay.
Part of this.
Yeah, that's correct. But he still does need to be plotting this at the equatorial plane to describe the GP on the outside edge of this circle. It wouldn't be on the outside edge of the circle. Based on the angle he's measured, it would be somewhere inside the globe in the equatorial plane.
Why are you talking about globe? He's pointing out that none of this is happening on a globe. He's pointing out that circle is flat.
He's not, but we've now flattened. We're now laying flat a measurement that we've measured an elevation inside a circle that is drawn 2-dimensionally top down.
Yeah, but the point is that he's pointing out that a circle of latitude is not a slice of the globe. It's just a flat plane. That's his point. Which it is.
Yeah.
You're complicating it because of the information you have from St. Man. You're complicating it in your own head. He's just pointing out, no, it's just a big flat circle.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Let's listen a bit further.
Would be, okay? So we know that we got a 40-degree angle. So this angle here, angle B, is what is put over here. 40 degrees, okay? So, again, we've got a full circle of 360 degrees. Now, if we're talking in terms of nautical miles, that means the circumference of our circle is 21,603 nautical miles, or thereabouts, okay? And that means that
Yeah, you're right. He's calculating the portion of an area of equal altitude for a given latitude. That's what he's actually doing, isn't he?
Why?
I don't know why.
Just have 10th. Can you tell 10th just to go over there and then talk with them, and then we can move on?
Okay. But it took me a while.
This is pain.
Yeah. Okay.
He's also doing something there. He's forgetting that, every circle is 360 degrees, and we'll have 21,600 minutes of degree within that. But that's not how you calculate what would be a circle of latitude.
Right.
That's not how you calculate that. You have to calculate that from the radius, which won't give you always 21,600. It'll be whatever it is.
Right. Okay, we'll stop there then. So 10th needs to have a word. Go through it with him.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
But it was a good try. He was right on top of it. He's just gone off the reservation a bit.
Yeah, we're off the reservation. Exactly, that's the right way to phrase it at this point. So that's why we'll conclude there. No disrespect to Nick. It's not that we don't want to cover the rest of it. Plus, we've been going live for quite a while now. So yeah. Anyway, I should do my call to action though. For Schnizzle, you do still need to go along and subscribe to Nick, who is definitely a friendly and worthy of a subscription. So I'm going to put his link in the live stream chat. So please let Nick know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. And Nick gets the same treatment as anybody else when we're putting these videos on. We're going to go through and be as hyper-specific as we can be, and if we find flaw, we're just going to point it out. But up until this point, though, excellent work, Nick. You know, you've really got a good handle on how this all works, how you're deriving these angles, what you're doing with them. There's a few Bosch moments, if we were extra critical, that you could have put in of your own volition. But other than that, great work. At this point, yeah, you've gone off the reservation a bit here. But other than that, great, marvellous. Right, any other comments on Nick before we ask everyone to stay tuned for the after show?
Just tell Nick, don't forget your center of the earth button.
Can you send him a definition of Bosch?
I think we've made the word up. I mean, I'm sure Bosch does exist. It's a brand name for a start, but I don't know if it'll come up as what I've described it.
Just tell him vaginalized.
Say again, Demek.
So just tell them they vaginalized it.
Vaginalized? What the hell does that mean?
It's a new word for you.
It's the American
Glober. They've been vaginalated.
Yeah, I got that bit, but why? Okay. Any particular reason?
It's
He
just
says
for
in a
the word
high-pitched tone.
I'm taking my Bosch.
I'm going to use that word today, vaginalated.
Well, that's one way to
like
completely
marginalized,
destroy the tone of the show right before the outro. But, I mean, we could carry this conversation on for another minute or so, I guess. Why? What's going on?
Nathan, that diagram you had on just before that one, and that one, that's what Nick was trying to show. He's trying to show that person, right? But with the angle on the diagram you had on the screen before that, the one just prior to that, he's trying to show the angle, but show that it create the straight line from the person's foot. So he's trying to show that's the angle. There's the two verticals. The person is right underneath that vertical there. The angle is to the celestial body, and where it meets that the GP of the celestial body, that's what he was trying to just show, that makes a circle. That's from what I could gather. That's what he was trying to display there. But he needs to get into some three-dimensional drawing or something to do it.
Yeah, well, he's deriving. He said it's not a slice, but that sounded too contradictory. He's trying to create. Let's see if I can find the diagram on the fly. There's one that shows like two planes parallel within a circle, and you could call one of them a latitude. Oh, there we go. This. Yeah. He's got a top-down view of this.
Yeah, he's just showing that top latitude there is actually on the. Is that like the two of them are actually on the same plane? They're not parallel horizontals.
Precisely. These one isn't in the air with respect to the other when plotted out as a latitude measurement with an angle, right? So you can see that each of these, where you've got 90 points, right? Let's just do it on the diagram. Can you see why can't you see my mouse? Oh, you can. Where you've got these 90s, you could describe, if this was Polaris being measured, the angle that Nick's describing, and therefore the circle he's describing is this circle. And when he describes it for a smaller angle, you could describe it as being parallel with the other, but they're both on the same plane. You're just getting closer to Polaris or farther away from Polaris on the same plane. But when you derive that into a sphere, you end up with these slices, right, that are appearing to be parallel with one another. No, these are all the same plane. Yeah? But if you then take that angle, that would be an angle measured off this plane here, you can't then lay it flat on this circle as Nick's done. It's just wrong. Now, that's unfortunate, but that's just where we've got to. That's probably why he's asked us to look at this, right? He suspects he's got something wrong and he just doesn't know what.
He's amalgamating two diagrams together, because if you take any of those 90-degree points and you take let's say, I know they're supposed to be from Polaris in that diagram for a globe, but you take any of them, you bring out an angle from there, right? Well, if you're hitting that circle, the point of that angle is not going to be directly above the GP of it, if you know what I mean. So that you can't use those two diagrams in like.
They're not interchangeable.
Separate diagrams,
Exactly.
if you know
yes,
what I mean. Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You got it. It's ping pong golf ball.
Yeah.
It is ping pong golf ball in that regard. Very good. On that note, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley, why did you make me laugh right before the outro? Let's try that once more. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. However, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to my Discord and G+ panels for making the live show possible, and Nick for giving us the video to react to. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. Hit me up on PayPal and smashing the super chat, all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video. Subscribe to Stinky Cash for all those people giving him flack in the live stream chat. Guy's a good guy. Go and subscribe to him. Hit his little icon and go and subscribe, you miseries.